The River Ankh is probably the only river in the universe on which the investigators can chalk the outline of the corpse. Dear Sergeant Colon, I hope you are well. The weather is fine. This is a corpse who we fished out of the river last night, but we don't know who he is except he is a member of the Fools Guild called Beano. He has been seriously hit on the back of the head and has been stuck under the bridge for some time. He is not a pretty sight. Captain Vimes says to find out things. He says he thinks it is mixed up with the murder of Mr. Hammerhawk. He says, talk to the fools. He says, do it. Also, please find attached piece of paper. Captain Vimes says, try it out on the alchemists. Sergeant Colon stopped reading for a while to curse all alchemists. Because it is puzzling evidence. Hoping this finds you in good health. Yours faithfully, Carrot Iron Founderson, Corporal. The sergeant scratched his head. What the hell did that all mean? Just after breakfast, a couple of senior jesters from the Fools Guild had come to pick up the corpse. Corpses in the river. Well, there was nothing very unusual about that. But it wasn't the way clowns died, usually. After all, what did a clown have that was worth stealing? What sort of danger was a clown? As for the alchemist, he was blowed if he was. Of course, he didn't have to. He looked up at the recruits. They had to be good for something. Cuddy and Detritus, don't salute! I've got a little job for you. Just take this piece of paper to the Alchemist Guild, all right? Then ask one of the loonies to tell you what he makes of it.
Where's the Alchemist Guild, Sergeant?
Said Cuddy.
In the Street of Alchemists, of course, said Colon. At the moment. But I should run if I was you.
The Alchemist Guild is opposite the Gamblers Guild. Usually. Sometimes it's above it, or below it, or falling to bits around it. The gamblers are occasionally asked why they continue to maintain an establishment opposite a guild which accidentally blows up its guild hole every few months. And they say, did you read the sign on the door when you came in? The troll and the dwarf walked towards it, occasionally banging into each other by deliberate accident.
Anyway, you so clever, he gave paper to me?
Ha! Can you read it then? Can you?
No, I tell you to read it. That's called delegation.
Heh! Can't read, can't count, stupid troll.
Not stupid.
Ha! Yes? Everyone knows trolls can't even count up to 4.
Author's note. In fact, trolls traditionally count like this. 1, 2, 3, many. And people assume this means they can have no grasp of higher numbers. They don't realize that many can be a number, as in 1, 2, 3, many. Many 1, many 2, many 3, many, many. Many, many 1, many, many 2, many, many 3, many, many, many. Many, many, many 1, many, many, many 2, many, many, many 3, lots. End author's note.
Eater of rats!
How many fingers am I holding up? You tell me, Mr. Clever Rocks in the Head.
Many?
Detritus hazarded.
Ha ha, no, 5. Oh, you'll be in big trouble on payday. Sergeant Cullen will say, stupid troll, he won't know how many dollars I give him. Ha! How come you read the notice about joining the watch anyway? Got someone to read it for you?
How come you read notice? Got someone to hold you up?
They walked into the door of the Alchemist Guild.
I knock. My job.
I'll knock.
When Mr. Sendevoge, the guild secretary, opened the door, it was to find a dwarf hanging on the knocker and being swung up and down by a troll. He adjusted his crash helmet. Yes, he said. Cuddy let go. Detritus's massive brows knitted.
You loony bastard, what do you make of this?
He said. Sendevoge stared from Detritus to the paper. Cuddy was struggling to get around the troll, who was almost completely blocking the doorway.
What you going calling that for?
Sergeant Colin, he said,
I could make a hat out of it, said Centrifuge. Or a string of dollies, if I could get some scissors. What my colleague means, sir, is can you help us in our inquiries in the writing on this alleged piece of paper here, said Cuddy. That bloody hurt!
Centrifuge peered at them. Are you watchman? He said.
I'm Lance Constable Cuddy, and this, said Cuddy, gesturing upwards, is Lance trying to be constable Detritus. Don't salute! Oh!
There was a thump, and Detritus slumped sideways.
Suicide Squad, is he? Said the alchemist. He'll come around in a minute, said Cuddy. It's the saluting. It's too much for him. You know trolls.
Centrifuge shrugged and stared at the writing.
Looks familiar, he said. Seen it somewhere before. Here, you're a dwarf, aren't you? It's the nose, isn't it? Said Cuddy. It always gives me away. Well, I'm sure we always try to be of help to the community, said Centrifuge. Do come in.
Cuddy's steel-tipped boots kicked Detritus back into semi-sensibility, and he lumbered after them.
Why the crash helmet, mister?
Said Cuddy, as they walked along the corridor. All around them was the sound of hammering. The guild was usually being rebuilt. Centrifuge rolled his eyes.
Balls, he said. Billiard balls, in fact. I knew a man who played like that, said Cuddy. Oh no, Mr. Silverfish is a good shot. That tends rather to be the problem, in fact.
Cuddy looked at the crash helmet again.
It's the ivory, you see.
Ah, said Cuddy, not seeing.
Elephants?
Ivory without elephants. Transmuted ivory. Sound commercial venture.
I thought you were working on gold.
Ah yes, of course you people know all about gold, said Centrifuge.
Oh yes,
said Cuddy, reflecting on the phrase, you people.
The gold, said Centrifuge thoughtfully, is turning out to be a bit tricky. How long have you been trying?
300 years.
That's a long time.
But we've been working on the ivory for only a week, and it's going very well, said the alchemist quickly, except for some side effects which we'll doubtless soon be able to sort out. He pushed open a door. It was a large room, heavily outfitted with the usual badly ventilated furnaces, rows of bubbling crucibles, and one stuffed alligator. Things floated in jars. The air smelled of a limited life expectancy. A lot of equipment had been moved away, however, to make room for a billiard table. Half a dozen alchemists were standing around it in the manner of men poised to run.
It's the third this week,
said Centrifuge gloomily. He nodded to a figure bent over a queue.
Mr. Silverfish, he began.
Quiet! Game on!
Said the head alchemist, squinting at the white ball. Centrifuge glanced at the score rail.
21 points, he said. My word. Perhaps we're adding just the right amount of camphor to the nitrocellulose after all.
There was a click. The cue ball rolled away, bounced off the cushion, and then accelerated. White smoke poured off it as it bore down on an innocent cluster of red balls. Silverfish shook his head.
Unstable, he said.
Everybody down!
Everyone in the room ducked, except for the two watchmen, one of whom was in a sense pre-ducked, and the other of whom was several minutes behind events. The black ball took off on a column of flame, whiffled past Detritus's face, trailing black smoke, and then shattered a window. The green ball was staying in one spot, but spinning furiously. The other balls cannoned back and forth, occasionally bursting into flame or caroming off the walls. A red one hit Detritus between the eyes, curved back onto the table, holed itself in the middle pocket, and then blew up. There was silence, except for the occasional bout of coughing. Silverfish appeared through the oily smoke and, with a shaking hand, moved the score point one notch with the burning end of his cue.
1, he said. Oh well, back to the crucible. Someone order another billiard table?
Excuse me,
said Cuddy, prodding him in the knee.
Who's there?
Down here.
Silverfish looked down.
Oh, are you a dwarf?
Cuddy gave him a blank stare.
Are you a giant? He said.
Me? Of course not.
Ah, then I must be a dwarf, yes.
And that's a troll behind me, said Cuddy. Detritus pulled himself into something resembling attention.
We've come to see if you can tell us what's on this paper, said Cuddy.
Yeah,
said Detritus. Silverfish looked at it.
Oh yes, he said. Some of old Leonard's stuff. Well?
Leonard,
said Cuddy. He glared at Detritus.
Write this down,
he snapped.
Leonard of Quirm,
said the alchemist. Cuddy still looked lost.
Never heard of him?
said Silverfish.
Can't say I have, sir.
I thought everyone knew about Leonard de Quirm. Quite balmy, but a genius too.
Was he an alchemist?
Write this down, write this down.
Detritus looked around blearily for a burnt bit of wood and a handy wall.
Leonard? No, he didn't belong to a guild. Or he belonged to all the guilds, I suppose. He got around quite a bit. He tinkered, if you know what I mean.
No, sir.
He painted a bit, and messed about with mechanisms, any old thing.
Or a hammer and chisel even, thought Detritus.
This, said Silverfish, is a formula for... Well, I might as well tell you, it's hardly a big secret. It's a formula for what we call number 1 powder. Sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal. You use it in fireworks. Any fool could make it up, but it looks odd because it's written back to front.
This sounds important,
hissed Cuddy to the troll.
No. He always used to write back to front,
said Silverfish.
He was odd like that, but very clever all the same. Haven't you seen his portrait of the Mona Og?
I don't think so.
Silverfish handed the parchment to Detritus, who squinted at it, as if he knew what it meant. Maybe he could write on this, he thought.
The teeth followed you around the room. Amazing. In fact, some people said they followed them out of the room and all the way down the street.
I think we should talk to Mr. de Quirm, said Cuddy.
No, you could do that, certainly, said Silverfish. But he might not be in a position to listen. He disappeared a couple of years ago.
Then when I find something to write with, thought Detritus, I have to find someone teach me how to write.
Disappeared? How? Said Cuddy.
We think,
said Silverfish, leaning closer,
that he found a way of making himself invisible.
Really?
Because,
said Silverfish, nodding conspiratorially,
no one's seen him.
Ah, said Cuddy. This is just off the top of my head, you understand, but I suppose he couldn't just have gone somewhere where you couldn't see him?
Nah, that wouldn't be like old Leonard. He wouldn't disappear, but he might vanish.
Oh.
He was a bit unhinged, if you know what I mean. A head too full of brains. I remember he had this idea once of getting lightning out of lemons. Hey, Centervoge, you remember Leonard and his lightning lemons?
Centervoge made a circular motion alongside his head with one finger.
Oh yes, if you stick copper and zinc rods in the lemon, hey presto, you get tame lightning. Man was an idiot.
No, not an idiot,
said Silverfish, picking up a billiard ball that had miraculously escaped the detonations.
Just so sharp he kept cutting himself, as my granny used to say. Lightning lemons? Where's the sense in that? It was as bad as his voices in the sky machine. I told him, Leonard, what are wizards for, eh? There's perfectly normal magic available for that kind of thing. Lightning lemons. It'll be men with wings next. And you know what he said? He said, funny you should say that. Poor old chap.
Even Cuddy joined in the laughter.
And did you try it?
He said afterwards.
Try what?
Said Silverfish. Said Detritus, toiling behind the others, putting the metal rods in the lemons.
Don't be a damn fool.
What this letter mean?
Said Detritus, pointing at the paper.
Oh, that's not a symbol, said Silverfish. That's just old Leonard's way. It was always doodling in the margins. Doodle, doodle, doodle. I told him you should call yourself Mr. Doodle.
I thought it was some alchemy thing, said Cuddy. It looks a bit like a crossbow without the bow. And this word, I don't get. What does that mean?
Search me, Sounds barbarian to me. Anyway, if that's all, officer, we've got some serious research to do,
said Silverfish, tossing the fake ivory ball up in the air and catching it again.
We're not old daydreamers like poor old Leonard.
Enoget,
said Cuddy, turning the paper round and round.
TheGonne. The Gone.
Silverfish missed the ball. Cuddy got behind Detritus just in time.